So Alyssa, what's on your radar?
So the award for the worst week in Washington goes to President Joe Biden, who had one of the most unfortunate Fridays in recent memory. But that award would have to be sent to a beach in Delaware to reach him because he chose to be on vacation. Now America's governors are left trying to make sense of the conflicting guidances from the FDA and the White House. Also on Friday, there was a diplomatic microdrama that escalated to a boiling point, resulting in one of our closest allies deciding to recall its ambassador. While I think the French are overreacting, it was undoubtedly a diplomatic faux pas and an unforced error by a president who has gone out of his way to claim he will be bringing back diplomacy. Finally, Joe Biden's border crisis that he and border czar Kamala Harris have refused to deal with for months has gotten substantially worse. As of yesterday, 15,000 immigrants camped out in a makeshift encampment in the Del Rio sector without access to clean water, food, or proper COVID care. We're neither enforcing our immigration laws nor are we helping with the unfolding humanitarian crisis at the border. Joe Biden continues to pretend the issue doesn't exist, despite his own Secretary of Homeland Security admitting it's both a humanitarian crisis and a potential national security threat. While Biden departed to the beach amid these mounting crises, Press Secretary Jen Psaki declined to give a press briefing to address any of these major issues. And yet another glowing profile on the White House press secretary came out, this time in the New York Times. This one is almost as poorly timed as the glowing Vogue spread on Jen that published while she was on vacation as Afghanistan was falling. President Biden, beach time is over. It's time to do your job. The man who claimed the adults were back in charge certainly does not seem to be. So Ryan, how long can Joe Biden punt on some of these major issues? I mean, the one I addressed was the border, and I know you and I disagree probably on general border security policies, but it's also an unfolding humanitarian crisis. Many of these are Haitians who came following the disasters in Haiti, trying to get refuge here, and we're basically just keeping them in an encampment outside without any sort of basic provisions. Is it tenable for him to continue to do virtually nothing there?
Well, I mean, he's not doing virtually nothing. Like they have the federal apparatus moving as quickly as they can to like bring people in, and then they picked up Haitian. They announced that they're going to step up Haitian deportations, which I think is deeply inhumane at a time when Haiti is facing so many stacked upon catastrophes, including a political unrest in which the U.S.-backed prime minister assassinated the U.S.-backed president, or appears to have been, or is like facing charges for having done so, and creating a political vacuum into which gangs have flooded to dominate the streets. So, for us to be rapidly deporting people back to that situation that we've helped destabilize is inhumane. The entire system is inhumane. Every president from now until the end of our lives is going to inherit this inhumane system. Republicans are going to use it to gin up nativism and hyper-nationalism and attack the filthy people that are coming across our border. Democrats are going to throw their hands up and say that there's nothing they can do and try to avoid dealing with the situation. When you have deteriorating conditions in South and Central America and in the Caribbean and around the world, and with a climate collapse that is just going to continue to push people out of those countries, you're just going to continue to have these wretched conditions until we actually decide to create a humane policy, which there's no evidence that we're capable of doing that. Well,
and one thing I can't help but think about when you're seeing these terrible images that are vastly inhumane in the Del Rio sector is we also are still dealing with about 2,000 COVID deaths a day, and there's variants spreading throughout the country, and there's no way that those people are properly protected, nor are our law enforcement who are trying to, enforce whatever version of the border laws the Biden administration's enforcing. But one thing I didn't even get to note in the bad week that followed Joe Biden is we are 2 weeks from a potential government shutdown. Mm-hmm. And I've not seen, any sort of a grand plan, whether it be from Leader Schumer or the White House, on how we're going to avoid that. And it does seem like Leader McConnell is a bit dug in on the debt ceiling. So I'd be curious your thoughts on what happens in Congress.
Well, yeah, when we're about a month away from the debt ceiling getting hit. and week plus on. So there are two competing ideas. One is to do the government's funding bill and put the debt ceiling in it. Would Republicans filibuster that in the Senate? We'll see. They've said that they will filibuster raising the debt ceiling. The last time that there was a standoff around this, I think the stock market lost about 20% of its value, and the credit rating of the country was downgraded for nothing, like for absolutely nothing, like for this obscure technicality that exists in federal law that says that that not only do you have to appropriate and authorize the money, that you have to authorize the debt, then you have to raise the ceiling of debt that the federal government is allowed to put out there. No other country has that. We shouldn't have it. We won't have it for long. At some point, this is destined to be scrapped. But for now, they're gonna flirt with everybody's 401ks for the next month. Probably lop a fifth of everybody's retirement accounts off, and then they'll come to some sort of deal.
Well, I do remember when our credit rating was downgraded under the Obama administration. I can't help but feeling like, and I know I covered a lot of different sort of unrelated things that happened this past week. I can't help but feel like under President Biden, there is this desire to sort of punt responsibility on very major issues, whether it be to Capitol Hill, whether it be even in some cases to the Supreme Court or to the agencies, the FDA, the CDC. But then there's not even the basic communication among the entities to be able to get those guidances right. I think for somebody who had 40 years in Washington, I almost expected better leadership out of Biden.
Although, he left Afghanistan. The drone strike is a war crime. They should find out if he personally ordered it. They need to investigate what happened. But he did leave Afghanistan. Every president before him had failed to do that. He pulled it off. It's an extraordinary show of leadership. So,
I know we're going to talk about this more later, but I'm genuinely curious, and I want to give the benefit of the doubt to our elected leaders. But was there even a point where they thought that was an ISIS target? Or were these briefings that we were given saying it was a righteous strike, were those given just simply to move on and to be able to say, turn the page, close the door, we're moving forward? That's what I'm curious to know.
We should find out. Clearly, so my guess is they saw people moving things into a car and trigger happy, just squeezed it and just annihilated this entire family. And then, in order to justify it, so who are the bad guys? We can't say it's the Taliban, so it must be ISIS-K. Those are the bad guys that people have heard of. If there was any intelligence that it was ISIS-K, then it would have been a situation that played out in Afghanistan countless times over the last 20 years, which was the U.S. getting bad intel purposely from somebody who had a grudge that they wanted the U.S. to carry out.
And there have now been reports that the CIA warned seconds before the strike that there were civilians included in the targets. So and again, we still moved forward with it, which is devastating. Team Rising joins us next.